Welcome to TV Free Baltimore's Books and Authors.
Hi, I'm Natasha Friedman, coming to you live from a remote location with Books and Authors, and I'm here with former mayoral candidate for Baltimore City, Zulieka Baysmore, as well as the author of the brand new book, Stolen, an attempt to steal the 2020 elections. Thank you so much for coming on tonight, Zulieka.
Thank you for having me.
So Zulieka, tell us about the book and what we should be looking forward to in reading your new book.
I would like to tell you, first of all, thank you for having me. The book, I was inspired and I really just felt compelled to write what I had experienced when I was running for mayor. And I saw some incredible things that really I didn't really believe happened behind the scenes of campaigns. So when I understood that President Trump would probably contest, because as you know, even back in as far as 2017, 2018, he talked about how a lot of chaos could go on if you were talking about mail-ins. And then once the pandemic hit back in May, he really started letting the American people know, look, I'm looking at what could take place because our various states and cities are not accustomed, they're not designed, they're not set up for universal mail-in voting. And they truly aren't. Florida is about the most proficient when it comes to mail-in and absentee voting. Because they've had decades to really get it right, okay? We knew throughout even the 2015, once President Trump surprised and just surprised the entire Democratic Party. But if you can recall, he also surprised the Republicans by actually winning. I mean, even some of the Republicans wanted to hold out from even not his nomination. The man is a fighter. And one thing that I loved about President J. Trump is I was humbly honored and was able to be privy to work with him in the entertainment industry. As you may know, I spent the past 25 years being one of the first female sports managers in the country. I managed professional boxers. So going into a arena such as politics, I knew that I was up against a really hard fight. I understood it being in the state of Maryland, but what really compelled me is the things that I saw and was able to document during my campaign, watching a lot of corruption going on in the city of Baltimore when it came to campaign, when it came to election, and when it came to voting. And I get into a lot of that in my book called Stolen, an attempt to steal the 2020 elections. This book, by the way, is dedicated to our President Donald J. Trump. It's also dedicated to all the men and women that have worked in his administration, as well as his legal team.
Now, Zulieka, one of the biggest things, especially in Baltimore City, was the mail-in ballots. You ran as a Republican in the primary. Do you focus on the mail-in ballot situation in your new book?
Yeah, absolutely. I have a whole chapter that's almost dedicated to what I saw take place when it came to the mail-in ballots. And there's a chapter in this book, I'm going to read a little insert from it tonight, called Harvesting the Ballots.
Now, we would love to hear you read a little excerpt of your book.
Okay. I'm going to wear my second eyes. Okay. So, as I said, this book is dedicated to President Donald Trump. It's also dedicated to all Americans that have a desire to really understand what goes on behind the scenes when it comes to our electoral process in America. Chapter 7, I'll read a few inserts from Chapter 7. Ballot harvesting in Baltimore. Brandon Scott learned the art of the steal, aided by the ineffective GOP and the Board of Elections. In the process of winning the primary to be crowned the heir apparent, Brandon Scott reversed his positions. He chose not to be seen in the public, nor would he participate in any more mayoral debates, instead of exposing himself to criticism. Brandon Scott would stand by and never really campaign. He would not be out in the streets among the people to earn their votes. Sounds familiar? Why out there and work for the election? Not when you have the election rigged to be stolen. Just go out enough to be seen. COVID-19 was a great cover for him as well as Joe Biden, wasn't it? Joe Biden used this method to stay in his basement. Brandon used it to harvest votes. Obviously, the fix was in. I just watched it played out. Brandon Scott was too busy to participate in the debates. He was in the streets of Baltimore harvesting ballots. Now, that's a portion of talking about the game of harvesting ballots. And I know for a lot of Americans, they may not understand that terminology, but just to break that down, there are campaign laws and regulations against harvesting votes. And you can actually get up to a $10,000 fine and a 5-year imprisonment sentence if you are found to be doing such that. So it's very hard to prove, especially when you have people that participate in the Board of Elections. So in my chapter,
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Sorry, can I ask you a question? Did you or your team personally see Brandon Scott and his team ballot harvest? Do you have witnesses that saw ballot harvesting going on in Brandon Scott's campaign?
Well, that's what's so hard about this. Everyone knows what was going on. But really, the big slip up was, I talk about this in chapter 2. The big slip up was when the media themselves actually on a early morning news broadcast back in March, so it was way before the actual primaries, they accidentally, not even thinking, I'm sure, they put and interviewed an organization that's made up of a lot of college sororities called Black Girls Vote. Well, they showed them, and I'm always videoing because I'm a promoter and producer, but it showed them where they were knocking on residents' doors, and mainly in the public housing of Baltimore City. And they were knocking on doors with small pink gift boxes. So I actually have a picture and a reference in the back of my book called Stolen that people can go onto that link and actually capture that news edition back in March. But they had a ballot. They even named what was in the box. A ballot. They had some footies, they had masks, and they had chips and other little goodies in the box.
Now, I do want to say for the record, during the campaign and after the campaign, Brandon Scott's team was at Baltimore City's in-person voting every single day. He was there afterwards. I did not see a Republican allowed to go in.
We weren't allowed.
Correct. Do you discuss that in your book?
It's actually a sector there where I personally experienced, where I saw various candidates on the Democratic card being allowed to actually go inside the
But
voting
Republicans,
polls.
no. Is that
Republicans,
correct?
I was actually stopped, and I was at least 20 feet away from the
And
door.
you were the candidate.
And
You
I'm
were
a
an actual
candidate, and I'm passing out, my flyers and my brochures with my initiatives. And the guy came out of this particular polling site and actually said, "You can't stand there. You can't do that." Okay? And Sheila Dixon was allowed inside. Different people were allowed inside, but they were Democrats, not one Republican. And not only that, there was, even after I think you asked the other night, well, Sheila Dixon lost by only 2,200 votes. And why didn't she actually contest? Because she definitely it was such a narrow margin where she absolutely had the right to contest. But I have to tell you, and I mentioned something in the book about that, during the pandemic, I think it was hard for a lot of us candidates to even find attorneys that would take on even challenging the vote. We weren't allowed to observe during the primaries, so I knew that a lot of this would go on in the general elections. So I get really deep into the book and talk about all the specifics in terms of what we're seeing.
To the record, to your point, they did find 1,000 extra votes for Brandon Scott and Brandon Scott alone a week after the election, which is very similar to what's going on with the presidential election. What happened to you where they shut Republicans out? Wouldn't you say, Zulieka, is very similar to what's going on now with the presidential election, what happened in Pennsylvania and Detroit, Michigan?
Oh, you know what? Let me say something, and I explained this in Stolen, that understand something about the significance of Baltimore City. Baltimore City has some of the greatest grassroots organizers in America. Whatever goes on when it comes to civil rights, when it comes to activism, when it comes to the Democratic Party, you can count that those leaders are stemming from Baltimore City. And guess what? All they have to do is make a phone call to Chicago, Philadelphia, Salt Lake. They can make a call to California. They can make a call to Jersey. They can make a call to Washington. Not too much Washington, D.C., but they can make a call to Alabama. They can make a call to Atlanta. I mean, I've watched this done. And in the course of a couple of weeks, you'll have busloads of activists gathering in a location. And see, now that was great in the 60s, but now that we're into technology, all it takes is to send out a notification. That's all it takes. So I knew what was going to happen in the general elections. And I talk about in my my last chapter is totally dedicated to what took place and why it's so truly important that President Donald Trump actually fight all the way to the Supreme Court if he has to. But I have to tell you that Giuliani, that team, is not focused on two issues that they need to be focused on, and I talk about that in the last chapter of the book, and which I hope they do if they're bringing forth the case to the Supreme Court.
Well, Zulieka, what are the two things that you would like Rudy
Then
Giuliani
that's giving away too much of the book. That book is going to be coming out on Monday. It's a fair price, but it's a book that all Americans need to take a look at. If you really truly want to understand the process, I don't care if you're a Democrat, Republican, or an independent or Green Party, you really need to read this book because it's going to break down every single entity that's involved in the election campaign process and just how powerful and controlling those entities are. And we've been talking about mainstream media. So I appreciate shows like this where it's non-biased, because the media, I got to tell you, a lot of people think that Fox 45 is, they're more toward the conservative. Honey, this has been the last 3.5 years. This has been an on-board approach to really destroy the president, to really destroy Donald Trump in terms of his character, his personality. They couldn't damage his character. They couldn't damage his work ethics, because the man is a doer. He's a worker. If he says he's going to do something, if he promises it, it's as good as done. And we watched that. Half of America, even more than half of Americans, actually have been focused more on this president's work and not so much on his personality. Understand, he's been a promoter. He's been in the entertainment industry. He's a businessman. And matter of fact, I was 34 years old, a woman of color, the first and the only woman involved in the boxing arena. Okay? I have a book that's coming out later this summer that my buddy, the former, who's now passed away, and the book is going to be dedicated to him, Senator Roth of Delaware. And he wanted the first edition of this book called The Establishment, the most powerful, the most corrupt power players behind the scene in boxing. So President Trump has done America great. A lot of us have seen exactly what he's been doing. And one thing about this president, is it's never been about race, it's never been about religion, it's never been about color. It's been about putting America first and Americans, and being able to uplift all Americans where they can actually experience the American dream.
Well, I just want to make a note about TV Free Baltimore. We cover the news that the mainstream media won't, and we are based on fact, not opinion. That's why we'll never say President-elect Biden, because we follow the Constitution on this network. Another thing I wanted to ask you, Zulieka, in terms of your book, besides the mail-in ballots, Dominion was something that really caused a lot of controversy, especially in the 2020 election. Does your book talk about Dominion and Smartmatic and how it can infiltrate an election and switch the ballots from President Trump to Vice President Biden?
Well, Dominion is actually the hardware. It's a company that it's actually not owned. Systematic is not owned by Dominion. It's two separate entities. One deals with...
Dominion is the voting system. Smartmatic is the technology.
It's the technology behind it. Yeah, absolutely. That's what I was going to break down. I would say this, being a former CEO of a high-tech firm, Xeron Automated Business Services, it was the first automation production company in the entire DMV from 1980 to 1989, making me the first female CEO in the country. I was 23 years old. And I got to tell you that a lot of my clients, SBA, DOES, DOD, Booker T. Washington Foundation in Washington, D.C., was right up from the White House. I got to tell you that, and being a former system analyst myself, now they call IT, I got to tell you that software is only as good as the developers and the people that are running the software. I'll put it that way. Anything and everything is possible when it comes to technology.
But do you agree that Smartmatic is a foreign entity? It is based in Venezuela. It used to, infiltrate the election of Hugo Chavez and Maduro.
Well, actually, the founder is from Venezuela, but the company is actually coming from out of Canada and is based in New York.
Well, Dominion. Dominion was
Right.
based in 2002 in Canada.
Right.
Then it went to New York. It went to
Right.
Denver, Colorado. Sorry, I'm talking about the software itself. The
Soft,
software
right.
is actually foreign. And I was going to ask if you discuss this in your book about the executive order that President Trump wrote in September 2018 about how we want to make sure we don't have any foreign entity infiltrating our elections, like we saw in 2016, like we saw in 2018 with the other primaries when the Congress got flipped.
Well,
from Republican to Democrat.
let me just explain something. On the legal standpoint, when you talk about illegal or foreign interference in elections, you can't. It's not really about the software. It's about those individuals that run the actual operating system that actually runs that hardware and the software that's interfacing with it. It depends on where you have your IT people and the people that really deal with the software. There was bugs in the software for a minute that they were trying to clear up, and that has nothing to do with being based in Venezuela. With technology, I don't care what company develops the software. It's all about who's operating the system. And the systems are being operated here in America. So I don't think that's really an angle. What I do think, however, is that we have to be very, very, we have to be very on purpose about protecting those machines when they're coming into those polling area facilities and going out, and who is operating the machines. Okay, because that's where you have a lot of the systematic, you could call it gross negligence or gross mistakes taking place. Such as when you're calibrating that system, the actual hardware. If it's not calibrated properly, then someone could be pressing that button for Donald Trump, and it's going toward Joe Biden. But it's all about who's programming the system and who's calibrating the software. And then you have to make sure that you have someone that's from both sides of the spectrum to actually be there when those machines come in and throughout the night. You can't, you already know that there is a computer glitch in the actual software, and
I'm sorry, go ahead. I was just going to say, one of the questions that was asked, especially in the hearing today, is that you vote for, let's say, President Trump, someone from a foreign country, from Spain or from Germany, is actually flipping your vote to make it Joe Biden. So a lot of people are asking, was my vote even counted in the United States, or was someone from a foreign country voting for me behind the scenes?
Well, you know what? I'm gonna say something, and I'm just gonna be very blunt about it. That's going way out there in terms of conspiracy, and I don't deal on that level because I deal with facts, I deal with technology, I deal with about the science. And if I know that if they take two approaches to the Supreme Court, they could possibly win their case in the Supreme Court. They're not going to win it based on some foreign interference based on software. I can tell you that now. Scientifically speaking, that software is controlled by who? It's only as good as the people that are operating that system and who is calibrating the hardware. So when that system is being bought in through with trucks, when that system is being bought in by a third party, and you have people from the Board of Election that's responsible for setting that system up, or they have a third party setting those machines up, then you have to make sure that your IT people are calibrating the hardware appropriately. You have to make sure that there's no bugs or glitches in the software so that you can get an adequate count, so that when people are pushing those buttons, that they're really pushing the button for the person that they really truly want to vote for. I think that See, and when it comes to software and when it comes to tracing where a system has been attacked or interfered with, oh baby, there's forensic scientists and IT people that are on top of that. And I'm telling you now that we would have definitely been heard about that with DHS involved and with our CIA involved and with Homeland Security. We would have known by now if there was any type of outside interference. All of this attempt to steal 2020 comes from right within our country. And that's why this book is important, because this was systematically done.
There was reports.
Look,
well,
first of all, yeah, go ahead.
I just want to state a fact that was written by Sidney Powell, that the good guys, actually, the U.S. military went into Frankfurt, Germany, and took the servers, and now they're in U.S. military hands.
So let's just wait and see what happens. But I'm telling you, it's only as good. If they went and confiscated servers, then guess what? They might have left a trail. They might have left a trail. But see, that's so technical. I could take hours explaining how that works. I would say he's doing the right thing. Let the specialists actually complete the investigation. But to throw that out there, I think we need to keep the American people focused on making sure that they continue to back the efforts. I don't care if you're Democrat, I'll say it again, Republican, Independent, or Green Party. You need to make sure that our country's elections are really fair and free and fair, and abiding by all the constitutional guidelines that actually make us so much greater and different than the rest of the world when it comes to the republic, when it comes to what they want to call a democracy.
Well, I have a question for you. Since there has been a lot of studies that Dominion has had a lot of faults, and a lot of Democrats and Republicans have said that there has been a lot of quote-unquote glitch problems with Dominion. Don't you agree that maybe we shouldn't have Dominion, especially in these runoffs that are happening in Georgia?
Well, let me tell you something. If they're going to use the same software, and we've had this discussion prior to the primaries. We had this discussion back in January and February where they were questioning the CEO of the company. So if I'll put it like this, I'm kind of like have the same attitude that President Donald Trump has, because as a businesswoman and being a former CEO, I look at things when it comes to facts. I look at things when it comes to ethics. I look at things when it comes to who will I do business with. And guess what? Because America is a capitalist country and it's free enterprise, and it's the freedom to know that when you have a problem, then what you do is you replace the problem with another solution. So I think it would be foolish for them to go into the runoffs in January utilizing the same equipment, the same software that is in question right now, that's still being investigated.
Well, you and I are on agreement on this, and President Trump has stated that we should have paper ballots all the way. It's the most efficient system, and it's the best way to determine who is the president, who's the congressman, who's the senator. What are your thoughts on that?
I would love to see one day when we have some real great system analysts that actually really train our young IT people how to really be able to consistently and persistently safeguard our systems here in America. Just like last week when we had the ransomware that invaded, Maryland in the county, where you had to shut down e-learning. Okay, so I think we've been pushing out over the past 20 years because there was such a major shortage of IT specialists. I truly think that we pushed out people that really are not thoroughly trained And we need some of our system analysts, especially military, that can come in and be mentors and actually give these young people more experience and more knowledge about how to actually patrol our systems. And because everything is a rush, nobody wants to spend the money. But I got to tell you, if America really understands that in order to compete on a global level, they will have to invest trillions of dollars into technology. And they may not want to do it, but that's a reality. They're going to have to do it because guess what? Every 3 months now, the technology evolves. It evolves. Why do you think Apple is so famous and have become so wealthy and such giants in the industry? Because they have a pipeline where they're dishing out new technology that's already in their pipeline for 2 years, 3 years from now. Every quarter, there's new technology. So
what's really interesting is that the majority of the poll watchers were engineers, people that served in our nation, in our military, that served in the Navy. And those are the main people that are testifying right now. Those are main people that have signed affidavits, which if they lie, it's a penalty of perjury. So I find that very interesting that the majority of the poll watchers are engineers, are high-tech people that understand the technology. And I find it very rich that a lot of legislators aren't really listening to these people that have been engineers, people that have served our nation for many years. Exactly.
You don't get it.
And this, again, the state
legislators I explained this in my book. They don't care.
Well, the state
they don't care.
Have the constitutional
you don't get it.
To save our election.
That's why all of you need to read Stolen, because you really don't get it yet. They don't care. See, the powers that be on the Democratic side do not care. They don't care. It's all about power for them, and it's all about maintaining the control and the power. That's what that's about. So this book is going to open Americans' eyes. So when you think about the next person that you cast your vote for, you need to do your homework. And you need not be influenced by the media, mainstream media. You need to do your own homework. You need to really go to congressional.org and look up people's records, how they voted. And yes, I believe that we need term limits because when you have cities, major urban cities like Baltimore City that's been ran by the Democratic establishment and status quo for over 70 years, it's because it's literally impossible. Number two is you've got the old GOPs that they don't want to change. We're in the 21st century. And to deal with racism, to deal with things that are not balanced and things that are not equal, and in terms of that start where Americans, everyone has that equal opportunity to be successful at anything they do in life. And that's what President Trump is all about. He's about uplifting and on every level, whether it be that young man or that young girl that decides that they want to seek out an opportunity versus college, whether it be our federal government in the Office of Management and Human Resources. I love what President Trump signed a executive order to a couple of months ago, where he is telling the federal government, look, you need to hire people with talent and gifts because they're talented. They can learn that we're going to always spend a certain amount of money when it comes to training new employees. I don't care what level, what entity, what industry you go into. But guess what? Some people are not are not made to be college bound. And so we need to understand that the process is you need an equal balance, even when it comes to our politicians, being able to understand that you have entrepreneurs. This country was built on free enterprise. Free enterprise. That's what this country was built on. And so We're a capitalist country. Okay? People lay down their lives trying to get to America. Okay? So we need to appreciate what we have. And we need to stop talking about separation, because racism is all about a person's mindset and what has been rooted in them. From the time they were born till the time that they went to school, how did your parents groom you? How did they raise you? Did they raise you to only deal with people that with the same skin tone? Or were they about character? Hey, don't call everyone your friend. Get to know them first. And if that person is the right person and has the right character, then maybe that will be someone that you can become friends with. So,
well, Zulieka, we only have a couple minutes left. Is there any other little excerpt you want to read from your book, Stolen?
Okay, so I would like to read this one last thing, excerpt from my book. And so chapter 10, which is the last chapter in the book, why President Donald Trump had to contest. President Trump warned the American people. And I'm going to go past this. The media machine did a great job over the past 4 years taking the attention off of President Donald Trump's work, placing the attention on personality, not character, not work, but personality. For those of us that actually watched the work of our president, we knew exactly where he was taking our country. We were moving into the 21st century without the focusing on politics as usual. He was focusing on service to the American people and all of our best interests. Every initiative he created was not about color, race, religion, or politics. It was about uplifting all Americans, because he understood that the people of America was the commodity.
Amen. Amen. Zulieka, where can we find your book? When is it coming out? How can we pre-order your book? Because I would love to read it myself.
Okay, you can pre-order Stolen, An Attempt to Steal the 2020 Elections. You can email me, baysmore.zulieka. That's baysmore.zulieka, ZULIEKA, @gmail.com. Or you can follow me on Facebook and order through Facebook. The book is going to be retailing for $39.95. We could have retailed it at $169, I was told. But we decided we felt all Americans really needed to read this book, because guess what? The election season will never stop. We're already in the 2022 election cycle. You can also inbox me on Facebook by just Facebook searching Zulieka Baysmore. I'm the first name that pops up. For those of you that would like to order by phone, you can give me a call at my office at 443-741-5748. It's going to be making its debut on Amazon hopefully by Monday. That's what the publisher is telling me, Monday. It will be available also in audio.
Wonderful. Now, Zulieka, are you planning on running for another race?
Oh my goodness.
Give us a little teaser, a little hint.
What did you do? See me on Fox 45 for the past 3 weeks, still fighting for our homeless, most vulnerable citizens in Baltimore City. But we've got some big things behind the scenes that's being done right now. I'm excited. We are going to change Baltimore City. Baltimore City will change no matter who the mayor is. Things will change. We are going to rebuild Baltimore City. And that's just going to be, that's a fact. Promises said and made, promises will be kept. So we'll wait and see, because I had people this week calling me. I was going out for lunch and people stopped me. Miss Baysmore, please run in 2024. That people still want me to run for mayor, but Brandon Scott does understand that I am watching every single thing that he does. And if he wants to maintain his job, he needs to make sure that he's surrounding himself with the right mindset and the right people that can get that done. And I've put out an olive branch to him, congratulated him, and let him know this is 38 years of experience as a leader. If you need me, I will be there, because I love Baltimore, and I just love all of you.
Well, I just want to say you are a great patriot to this nation. I've watched you on Facebook with your Z-Bay behind the scenes. I think it's wonderful. You have so much fire and so much passion for Baltimore City and for the state of Maryland and nationwide. I want to thank Zulieka Baysmore for coming in tonight, former Baltimore mayoral candidate, or Baltimore City, mayoral candidate, and the author of the brand new book, Stolen, an attempt to steal the 2020 elections. Please pre-order. Please go on her Facebook. Please email her and get the book before Christmas, before Hanukkah. It's going to be a great read, and this is something that everybody be wanting to read and should get educated on. Again, my name is Natasha Freeman with TV Free Baltimore, with our section tonight, Books and Authors. We cover the news that the mainstream media doesn't. You have a wonderful night, Baltimore.
You're watching Books and Authors on TV Free Baltimore.